طرفك فلما رآه مستقرا عنده قال هذا من فضل ربي ليبلوني أشكر أم أكفر ومن شكر فإنما يشكر لنفسه ومن كفر فإن ربي غني كريم قال نكروا لها عرشها ننظر تهتدي أم تكون من الذين لا يهتدون فلما جاءت قيل أهكذا عرشك قالت كأنه وأوتينا العلم من قبلها وكنا مسلمين وصدها ما كانت تعبد من دون الله إنها كانت من قوم كافرين قيل لها ادخل الصرح فلما رأته حسبته لجة وكشفت عن ساقيها قال إنه صرح ممرد من قوارير قالت رب إني ظلمت نفسي وأسلمت مع سليمان لله رب العالمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله أما بعد. We thank the Almighty Allah for blessing us with another day. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. Inshallah. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. We bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and his messenger. Today is Monday, the 18th of Ramadan, 1441 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which also corresponds with 11th May 2020. We are on the 17th day of our Ramadan series. For the past 1 week, we have been speaking about the Quran, and then we looked at the miracles of the Quran when we started with the miraculous message of the Quran. And then our next episode in that section spoke about the miracles of the legislation of the Quran. So we looked at the sources of Sharia, we looked at the Sunnah as a secondary or the second major source of the Sharia, and we looked at the definition of the Sunnah, we looked at types of Sunnah, we looked at the relationship between the Sunnah and the Quran, and then we looked at the responsibility upon us towards the Sunnah, and then the owner of the Sunnah, who is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The conversation dragged us to talk about Bid'ah, and then science of Bid'ah, and the other related issues on Bid'ah. Today we are going to look at the two more other sources of the Sharia, just briefly before we move on and talk about the characteristics of the Sharia. The two other sources of Sharia, apart from the Quran and the Sunnah, are what the scholars call Qiyas. Wa alaikum salam, Uncle. Barka da waraka. We are fine. I'm in Detroit, inshallah. The two other sources of the Sharia are what we call al-Qiyas. Qiyas in the English language means analogy. Briefly, what Qiyas is, if there's a new issue or a contemporary issue that is not directly spoken about in the Quran or the Hadith. So the scholars, in trying to find a ruling for it, look for an issue in the Quran or Hadith that has parallel, criteria or parallel, descriptions or reflections with that new trend. For example, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they didn't have, let's say, they didn't have cigarettes, for example. They didn't have heroin. They didn't have cocaine. So what then is the ruling of the using of cocaine or heroin or cigarettes in Islam? If you check the Quran and Sunnah, there is no mention of heroin or cocaine or cigarettes. The Sunnah, the same thing. But then you look at it and then it's a form of a drug. So that Islam has a general ruling concerning drugs and the usage of drugs. Yes, there is a verse that says, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Don't throw yourselves into something which is going to destroy you. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. Don't kill yourselves because He's very merciful with you. Even the cigarette pack, the manufacturer has written on it, cigarette smoking can be harmful to your health. So using this verse and using other verses or other hadith that talk about drugs, then cigarettes and then heroin and cocaine become haram in Islam. So that's what qiyas is all about. The scholars will look into the Sharia and then find parallels with contemporary issues that are going on. For example, another issue has to do with, for example, this COVID-19 that we are in now, and then the salat that people are praying. You see on social media, on the internet, people are praying salat, and then there is, gaps. There are gaps between them. Is it permissible? Is it wrong? Yes, some scholars are saying it is wrong. Some scholars are saying it is right. It is okay. The scholars who are saying it is okay, they use qiyas in a sense that we are not in normal times, and on normal times, the rulings, apply to the times. For example, because of COVID, we cannot go to the masjid to go and pray. Has there been any instance in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam where people were not allowed to go and pray because of a disease? No. Okay. Has there been any time at a particular time during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam where the people were not allowed to go and pray because of a certain condition? Yes. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it's going to rain heavily or it's raining heavily, he tells the mu'adhin that after Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, don't say hayya ala salah, say sallu fi rihalikum, pray in your homes. So because of the calamity of the rain or the disaster of the rain or whatever that the rain might be an impediment to the community, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells them, pray at home, don't come to the masjid. So you look at COVID-19. Between COVID-19, the dangers that COVID-19 can pose to us, and then the rainfall, which one is more dangerous? Obviously, COVID-19 is more dangerous. So using qiyas analogy, COVID-19 and the rain have something in common, which is what? Disaster, chaos, impediment. So you use the hadith of rain as a solution for the problem of COVID-19 of not going to the masjid. That is one. Also, the issue of the prayer in between the rows. There is what we call Salatul Khawf, prayer of fear, in a way that you will not be able, because you are facing an enemy, there is the opportunity that the enemy will fight you, and then there is a form of prayer, the war prayer. Even in war, Muslims pray. So the scholars who supported this, they have very valid reasons saying you can pray separately, 2 feet apart or 3 feet apart, and then there's nothing wrong with that, because they said closing the gaps in prayer is not a requirement for the soundness or the authenticity of the prayer. It means if you leave gaps in your prayers, the prayer is not invalid. The worst that some of the fiqh say is that your prayer is accepted, but then you are sinful. because the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ordered us to close the rows and not to leave gaps. But if you leave gaps, the scholars are of the consensus that your prayer is valid. So this brings us to the next point, which is al-ijma, another source of the Sharia, which is consensus. Consensus here doesn't necessarily mean that the scholars will meet on a round table for days or months discussing an issue. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It could be that one scholar is in Ghana or even Accra. He does a research on an issue and then he gives a fatwa. Another scholar in Kumasi does research on the same issue and then he gives a similar fatwa. Then another scholar in Tamale also at another time, different time, does a research on the same issue and then he finds solutions and then he gives the same fatwa. So the fact that these scholars have agreed on this fatwa or this issue, it is called ijma. They agreed. It could also mean that the scholars met on a round table and then discussed. These two sources of Sharia are also very deep. We need a whole session to understand them, but then we just touch upon them so that as a reminder for people. Another issue is we're going to look at the characteristics of the Sharia, but before we go into the characteristics of the Sharia, we're going to look at the objectives of the Sharia. It's very, very important we look at the objectives of the Sharia before we go to the characteristics of the Sharia, because most often than not, people do not understand what the Sharia really stands for. Some people feel the Sharia is all about killing people, chopping off their heads, maiming them, flogging people, men marrying 4 wives and stuff like that, women being, oppressed and they are second-class citizens and stuff like that. But what really are the objectives of the Sharia? What does the Sharia really, stands to achieve? In any, legal system, the legal system has something that it wants to achieve. And it is no different from Islam. The scholars have, through their studying of the Sharia, pulled out for us 5 objectives of the Sharia. The Sharia stands to, take care of 5 things. Before that, the Sharia has 3 other, things that it looks at. We have what we call ad-daruriyat, the needs and the necessities of human beings. The Sharia takes care of it. We have al-hajiyat, issues that are, wants. The first one are needs. The second ones are wants. The third one are tahsiniyat, are what we call the luxuries. So the Sharia has divided, our lives into 3. The first part is what we call ad-daruriyat. These are necessities, needs. People need them. There's nothing you can do without them. The second one are wants. They are a scale lower than that. And then the third one are luxuries, at-tahsiniyat, that people can live without them. So the 5 necessities that the Sharia wants to protect. Number 1, we have ad-din, hifz-ud-din. The Sharia has come to institute a relationship between you and Almighty Allah. The Sharia has come to institute a relationship between you and Almighty Allah. And then the Sharia is regulating that in a package. So if you find religions across the world, Islam is also a religion. But if you look at the religions all over the world, and then the rules and regulations that they have, when it comes to your relationship with the divine, Islam's rules stand tall. It's very simple. In Islam, the thing that makes the rulings of Islam in relation to the servant and his Lord is this profound word, La ilaha illallah. There is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. This point stands tall. So the Almighty Allah, in Islam's point of view, is one and only. He doesn't need anybody's help. He doesn't need anybody's support. He is the absolute. He is the eternal. And then he is the most powerful. And there is none like him. But then in other religions, with all due respect to them, you find out that some humans also have that. Some humans have that, what you say, that power that the Almighty Allah has. For example, our neighbors, the Christians, yes, even though they believe in monotheism, that the Almighty Allah is one and only, they also have Trinity, where God is a triune God, where there is the Son of God, and then there is the Holy Spirit, and all these three are one in a triangle where they control everything. In Islam, we don't have that. In other religions, they have some of these things. But in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is not part of any, triangular God system. No, he is a servant, a messenger of the Almighty. And that's it. So the Islamic Sharia, the first objective that it looks at is the kind of relationship between man and God. And then it regulates that relationship to the extent that man is a servant and God is the most powerful. And man is in need of God and God is not in need of man. So the hadith where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أتقى قلب رجل واحد منكم ما زاد ذلك في ملك الله شيئا. If one of you, if the first of you, or the last of you, or the humans, or the jinns, or the elderly, or the younger ones, are all to agree on the hearts of the most pious of men amongst you, that from today onwards, we are all going to worship the Almighty Allah. We are not going to commit sin. We are going to be, obedient servants to the Almighty Allah. He said, Mazada dhalika fi mulki shay'a. Almighty Allah is saying in Hadith al-Qudsi, sorry, it's not a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, it's a Hadith al-Qudsi. He said, that will not increase anything in me. The Almighty Allah says, if you think that by the virtue of us all going to worship the Almighty Allah, that will be a plus for the Almighty Allah, the Almighty Allah says, no, it's not going to increase anything for me. وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَوَّلَكُمْ وَآخِرَكُمْ وَإِنسَكُمْ وَجِنَّكُمْ كَانُوا عَلَىٰ أَفْجَرِ قَلْبِ وَاحِدٍ مِّنكُمْ. That if all of you from today onwards say we are no longer going to worship the Almighty Allah, we are going to do all kinds of evil, مَا نَقَّصَ ذَلِكَ مِن مُلْكِي شَيْئًا. Allah is saying it is not going to reduce anything from my dominion. That is why in Surah Al-Dhariyat, he said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created the jinns and then the humans for anything apart from them to come and worship me. مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ رِزْقٍ. I don't need any form of sustenance from them. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ. I don't want them to feed me. إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينَ. The Almighty Allah is the provider, the cherisher, the strong. He doesn't need anybody's help. So the first objective of the Sharia is that it has come to protect the deen. So you find out that the laws and the rules and regulations of Islam do not change when it comes to the relationship between the Almighty Allah and then his servants. The reverence that we have with Almighty Allah, and then the way we relate with Almighty Allah, in the type of words we use in describing the Almighty Allah. We don't have any man, God, God, man. Oh, Alaji Islam, I miss you. I'll call you after the prayer. We have to discuss a lot of things. Sometimes the time frame beats me. When I'm going to call you, I realize, no, it's late at night. Let not me disturb you. So inshallah, I'll call you right after this program. Thank you very much for passing by. So the first objective that the Sharia wants to protect is that the Sharia is protecting, inshallah, the Sharia is protecting deen, relationship between you and the Almighty Allah. It's very, very paramount. It's very, very, it places premium on that. The second objective that the Sharia looks to protect is hifzun nafs, the protection of lives. Someone would say, the Sharia is protecting lives, and we are seeing, people, around the world, they use the name of Islam and then they kill, they bomb, they massacre, they destroy. We have all these terrorist organizations across the world saying they are helping to promote Islam, but then they are killing people just anyhow they want. So how come your Sharia says it's protecting lives? When you have in the Quran, وَقْتُلُوهُم مِّنْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُم, kill them wherever you find them. So how? The Sharia considers 4 lives as being sacred. 4 lives being sacred. In Sharia, there are 4 lives that nobody must touch, harm, kill. If you do that, you'll be killed. Because the punishment for murder in Islam is capital punishment, killing you too. Except if it is, manslaughter or there is a mistake. For example, in Islam, before murder is considered murder, first of all, the person doing the killing used something that can kill, and then he hit where, if it is being hit, the person can die. For example, if you use a gun and then you aim at a person and then you shoot the head, this is premeditated murder, because a gun can kill and then shooting in the head too can kill. So in judging such a case, all these 2 factors point to the fact that you premeditated murder, unless if there is a medical report that says you are not well. Because in Islam, if someone is mad or sick, the laws do not work on him. It's in the Sharia. Another example is, if, for example, you've gone to the bush to go and hunt, and then this is an antelope, and then you aim at the antelope and then you shot the antelope, but then the antelope was fast enough to dodge, and then your fellow hunter was coming and then the bullet passed into his head and then killed him. This is not premeditated murder. The Sharia will not hang you, because yes, you killed him, but then you were not aiming at him. You were aiming to shoot an animal, and then the animal dodged, and then unfortunately he was there and then he was killed. This is another scenario. The third scenario is that you used a stick to hit someone on the head and the person dies. Normally, sticks don't kill, but then because you hit the person on the head, and then the head is a very delicate part of the body, that if anything happens, the tendency of death is very, very high. The scholars have another, ruling on that. Or you pick a stick and then you hit someone on their back or on their bottom and the person dies. Normally, if you hit somebody on their bottom, they don't die. It is not a killing place. And then the stick is also not a killing, organ or instrument or tool. So it is not premeditated murder. So these are some of the, scenarios that the Sharia looks at when it is, judging a murder case. Was it premeditated? What shows that it was premeditated? Okay, he used the gun and shot the guy in the head. But no, yes, even though he shot the guy in the head, he was not aiming at him. He was aiming at an antelope, or he was aiming at a dog, or he was defending himself from an armed robber who is shooting him. So in dodging to fire back at the armed robber, he fired the armed robber, dodged, and then someone was passing by, or someone was also hiding, and then the stray bullet hit that person. So the Sharia looks at all these things. My sweetheart, how are you? May Allah continue to increase you also in beneficial knowledge. I miss you. How are my daughters doing? MashaAllah. So the Sharia looks at all these things before the Sharia picks a ruling. So when the Sharia says, when someone kill the person, it is not just straightforward, they go and pull the person and then hang him or chop off his head. No. We have a legal system that we must follow. So the Sharia protects lives. And as we said, there are 4 sacred lives in Islam that Islam protects. These lives are sacred and nobody must touch them. The first sacred life is the life of a Muslim. If someone says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, you don't kill that person. Even though there are exceptions to that rule. If that Muslim kills another Muslim deliberately, then his life is forfeit. He must also be killed. But then for no apparent reason, you get up and then you kill Muslims. Or because these Muslims, disagree with you on an issue. For example, these terrorist organizations that you have across the world, those who claim they are Muslims, they are killing more Muslims than they are killing non-Muslims. Because they are saying these Muslims who do not side with them, their rule is either you are with them or you are against them. Whether you are a Muslim or not, it's either you are with them or you are not. You are against them. So if you are not with them, when they come, they kill you. So it's very, very astonishing that you find a Muslim shout Allahu Akbar, and then he's blowing other Muslims who are also saying Allahu Akbar at the same time. It's puzzling. It baffles me. How can a Muslim shout Allahu Akbar and kill another Muslim who is also shouting Allahu Akbar? It doesn't add up. And some of these guys, they say they are helping Islam by killing these hypocrite Muslims. The Prophet Muhammad lived with hypocrites in Medina. He didn't go around chopping off their heads. He knew they were hypocrites. He knew they were affecting Islam. He knew they were attacking Islam secretly. He knew it. But then he didn't give an order for them to kill them just like that. So the fact that you disagree with a Muslim on an issue, whether it is major or minor, that doesn't warrant his killing. No, it doesn't. And funny enough and painfully enough, you find the most unstable places on the surface of the world allow Muslim nations, Muslim communities, Muslims killing each other. And it's not helping us at all. Because if you and I are playing football, we are on the soccer team together, and then I come and kick you and say, because you are not passing the ball to me, or because you're missing the passes, I kick you out of the team. And then we are not playing 10 against 11. Did I help the team? I didn't. At least 11 against 11, psychologically, we know we stand a fight. But then 10 against 11, we've lost psychologically. And most often than not, 10 against 11, the 10 players are the ones who lose the matches. Except in extraordinary cases where the 10 people, they master their courage and then their psychological levels go high. So the first life to be protected is that of a Muslim. The second life that the Sharia protects is that of a non-Muslim. The third life is that of a non-Muslim. The fourth life is that of a non-Muslim. These three non-Muslim lives are sacred in Islam. See, that is why you don't get up and say, because the Quran says, فَقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُوهُمْ, kill them wherever you find them, these non-Muslims. It doesn't mean every kafir is a kafir, he must be killed. No. It doesn't mean that because he's a kafir, that's it. His blood is not sacred. Kill him and then you go scot-free. No. So take this out of your mind. We have different categories of kuffar. And their lives are sacred in the Sharia. You don't just get up and say all kafir are kafir, or because there are some non-Muslims in one country, they are punishing Muslims, killing them, incarcerating them. So you also get up and then you attack the non-Muslims in your country who are living peacefully with you, and then they are not doing any harm to you. What is their crime? If some non-Muslims in some parts of the world, whether it's in China, whether it's in India, whether it is in Burma, whether it's in Sri Lanka, and they are killing Muslims. Yes, they are killing Muslims there. So those of us in Ghana or Nigeria will say, since you Christians or Buddhists or Jews, you are killing Muslims, your people who share the same faith as you are killing Muslims in those countries because we want to show solidarity to those Muslims. You too will kill you when they've not done anything. No, that's not Islam. That's your own emotions overriding you. Yes, in as much as it's painful that Muslims are being slaughtered left, right, and center in these parts of the world, it doesn't mean those of us who are living with our non-Muslim neighbors peacefully without any fight, we should pick up arms in showing solidarity to our brothers who are over there. Let's kill this and then let's equalize. No, Islam doesn't see that. Doesn't see that. This is chaff and ignorance. The first non-Muslim whose life is sacred in the Sharia is Ahlul Dhimma. Ahlul Dhimma are non-Muslims living within an Islamic state who have been allowed to live. They are paying their taxes. They are obedient Muslims. Islam recognizes the rights of minorities. Go and read the Charter of Medina, where the Prophet Muhammad signed the charter that identified the rights of minorities in Islam. No charter preceded the Charter of Medina where the rights of minorities were recognized. Ahlul Dhimma. The Prophet Muhammad said, you see these Ahlul Dhimma people, these Jews, these Christians that are in Medina, who are obedient, who are not attacking us, who are not at loggerheads with us, we are living peacefully with them in Medina. Anybody who cheats them, anybody who oppresses them, anybody who does anything bad with them, I will be the lawyer of that non-Muslim against you on the day of Qiyamah. The Prophet Muhammad is ready to be a lawyer, an attorney for any non-Muslim living in an Islamic community who is being cheated by Muslims. You, the Muslims, will face that non-Muslim on the day of judgment, and the Prophet Muhammad is their lawyer. What kind of case are you going to present there? If you are in a Muslim community, and then we have non-Muslims there, don't think because they are non-Muslims and then we are more in number, we can just do anything we want to them. Call them names, ridicule them, chastise them when they are living peacefully with us. So Ahlul Dhimma, non-Muslims living within the Islamic state, the ideal, real Islamic state, and then they are obedient, they are not, destroying anything, they are following the laws. You don't touch them. You leave them to practice their religion. That is why during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, he was walking in the streets of Medina and then he found an old man begging. And Umar said, begging in Medina when I am alive? Who are you? He said, I'm a Jew. So during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, the man that when Shaitan meets him, Shaitan changes his path. There were Jews in Medina. There were Christians in Medina. So if you say today you are going to clean Jews off the surface of the earth, or you are going to annihilate Christians from the surface of the earth because you are the correct Muslim, you are doing jihad, you are helping Islam, then you are doing your own religion. Because when Umar ibn Khattab was alive, when the Prophet was alive, the Prophet died and then he left Jews in Medina. He died and then he left Christians in Medina. He lived with them. He did business with them. Even his armor was with a Jew as a collateral for food in Medina when he died. Abu Bakr was with Jews in Medina. Umar was with Jews in Medina. So if you come today and then tell us that you are going to wipe off the Jews from the surface of the earth because so and so, we will tell you that is not Islam. Islam didn't say we should wipe them off the surface of the earth because they are mentioned in our Quran. They have rights in our religion. Yes, Jews and Christians have rights in Islam. Islam recognizes that. Ahlul Dhimma. The old man said, I'm a Jew. I have nobody to take care of me. Umar ibn Khattab said, La khayra fina. There is no good in us. When this man was a young man, We took taxes from him to protect him. Now that he is old and then he can't feed himself and then he can't pay taxes, we leave him on the streets as a beggar. Then there is no good in us. He looked at his secretary of the treasury and then he said, from today onwards, every old man who can take care of himself, whether he's a Muslim, whether he's a Jew, whether he's a Christian, so long as he's within the Islamic State and he's under our protection, give him monthly allowance. Umar ibn Khattab was giving old Jews and old Christians pension allowances during his time. And then you come and tell us that let's kill them. You think that is our Sharia? That is not our Sharia. Our Sharia doesn't recognize that callous nature. No. And then we are not saying this to flatter anybody, or we are not saying this to get closer to anybody or to get any favor from anybody. This is our religion. This is our religion. This is the truth. It is not to get favor from anybody. If we get favor from human beings, non-Muslims, and then the Almighty Allah is annoyed with us, then what's the importance of that favor? This is our religion. Ask any sheikh of Ahlul Dhimma, and then he will explain further for you. Umar ibn Khattab, during his time, an old woman came to him. She stopped him on the streets of Medina, and then she said, Amir al-Mu'minin, I have a daughter that is of marriage age, but then I don't have money to take care of the expenses. I need help. Umar ibn Khattab looked at her and then he saw that she had a necklace with a cross on it. So during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, the Christians wore their necklaces and then there were crosses on it. Yes, they wore it. They wore it. And Umar looked at her and then he said, why wouldn't you become a Muslim? And then she said, I'm too old. What will your God do with me? Umar said, okay, no problem. That's your choice. Yes. Umar told a Christian, that's your choice. Umar ibn Khattab, yes, he told a Christian, that is your choice. And then what happened? He told his secretary, give her enough money to take care of the expenses of her marriage. After the old woman left, Umar turned and then he started crying. The secretary asked him, why are you crying, Amir al-Mu'minin? He said, when I asked her, why wouldn't she be a Muslim? She felt uneasy. And I felt as if I was pressurizing her to be a Muslim. And it is not good. That is why I feel I have done something wrong. That is why I'm crying. Ahlul Dhimma. Wallahi, we can spend 2 hours speaking about Ahlul Dhimma and their rights in Islam and then we will not finish. So Islam came to protect lives. The second life, from the life of a Muslim, apart from the life of a Muslim, is Ahlul Dhimma. And on Muslim living within the Islamic State. You don't force him to be a Muslim. He lives, he practices his religion, he pays his taxes. He's just like any other citizen, except that he is not a Muslim. That's the difference. The second life that is protected in the Sharia of that of a non-Muslim is Al-Musta'man. This guy is a non-Muslim, but then he is not a citizen of the Islamic community. So he seeks permission to come into the Islamic community, either for education, either for business, either for tourism, for any legal thing. He didn't come to do anything illegal. He went to our consulate or our embassy, and then we gave him a visa, and then he came into our country for education, for whatever. So the Almighty Allah says in the Quran, وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنًا. If any of the non-Muslims was to seek your protection, فَأَجِرْهُ, give him that protection. حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ, let him come in, let him stay, and then let him listen to the word of the Almighty Allah. If after staying with you, he accepts Islam, فَبِهَا وَنِعْمَةً. If after staying with you 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, according to your, permission, and then he still didn't accept Islam, give him escort. ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنًا. Give him escort. Escort him to safety. Listen, Islam says, the Quran says, when a non-Muslim comes into your country, you've given him permission to come into your country, to come and do business, to come and to have an education, to do whatever. And after the stay, give him escort to safety. So where are those Muslims who kidnap journalists who have been given permission to come into Muslim countries? Where are those Muslims who capture diplomats? Where are those Muslims who kidnap school children of non-Muslims who are living in their countries? All in the name of we are protecting Islam, we are helping Islam. You are going against a major ruling in the Quran where the Almighty Allah says, ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنًا, give him protection, give him escorts to safety, even after he didn't accept Islam. He came into the Muslim state to study, to do business, to work as a diplomat, as a journalist, as a researcher, as a tourist. And then he's not flouting any laws. He's not disturbing the peace. Give him security. Give him security. Give him security. It's not just anybody you get up and then you harass in Islam because he's a non-Muslim. Give him security. There is the hadith of Umama to Ibn Uthal. Umama was captured by the Muslims. He was a non-Muslim who was killing Muslims, raiding and then pillaging. So a group of Sahaba, a scouting group, captured him and then they brought him to the masjid. And then they brought him in the masjid. In the masjid. He was tied in the masjid. And I'm repeating, in the masjid. They tied him in the masjid. So they went and they told the Prophet Muhammad, Ya Rasulullah, today we did a great job. We've captured Thumama. Wow. So the Prophet came in and he saw Thumama tied in the masjid. And he asked them, have you given him food? They were like, Ya Rasulullah, food for Thumama? Thumama is this guy who has been killing us. What kind of food? We are all just only waiting you to tell us to just chop off his head. He said, no, untie him. They untied Thumama. Thumama ate. And then the Prophet ﷺ asked him, Ma khatbuka ya Thumama? Thumama, what do you have? What brings you here? He said, what brings me here? It is your boys are the ones who captured me. Prophet ﷺ said, yes, but you have something to tell us. What is it? He said, listen, Muhammad. He didn't even call him Abul Qasim by his kunya. He called him by just mere name, Muhammad. Listen, Muhammad. In taqtul dhadam. In tunim ala shakir. If you're going to kill me. But know and understand one thing. If you kill me, I have people who will come and revenge. But then if you let me go scot-free too, I'll thank you for letting me go. But then for me to accept Islam is not a condition on the table. Forget about it. For me to accept Islam is not a condition on the table. Not at all. So the Prophet ﷺ left him and then he went. Thumama spent 3 days in the masjid with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ will come and ask him, Ma khatbuka ya Sumama? Sumama, anything, you tell him the same thing. If you kill me, kill me. If you let me go, I'll thank you. But for me to be a Muslim, forget about it. On the 3rd day, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ asked him, Sumama, what do you have for us? He said, if it is about accepting Islam, then forget about it. So he told us, the Sahaba, Atliku Thumama, let him go. The Sahaba were like, we should let him go. He said, let him go. So they left Thumama. They gave him his horse. They gave him his sword. They gave him everything that he brought. He left. After a time, they saw him returning back to Medina. He came and then he sat in front of the Prophet Muhammad and he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu annaka Rasulullah. He said, I bear witness that there's no God worthy of worship. And I bear witness that you, Muhammad, you are the messenger of Allah. So the Sahaba were like, you, Thumama, what is wrong with you? You were here with us all these days. And then we were telling you, be a Muslim, accept Islam, accept Islam. The Prophet was always trying to convince you. But then you didn't accept. Now that you've gone, now you are coming back to come and say you are a Muslim. What is that? You could have just, relieved all of us of this problem. Wa alaikum salam Nizamuddin. How are you? You could have relieved us of all this problem. So Thumama told them, when I was a captive, I saw the way Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was living with you in the masjid. His softness with you, his sympathy with you, his love for you, his respect and regard for you. You were his followers, but then he respected you guys a lot. If anybody should come to the masjid and then he doesn't know who Muhammad is, he will not be able to differentiate him from amongst the people through his dressing or through his sit. He was not dressed any pompously. He was not, sitting on anything ensconced above everybody. No, he was normal, down to earth. And I was hearing the Quran, listening to the Quran. Naif, wa alaikum salam, how are you? I heard the Quran. So when I left Medina, I've come back willingly. If I was under captivity and I accepted Islam, people would say because I was afraid of my life or afraid for my life. That is why I accepted Islam. But then I was released. I came back out of my own volition and I accepted Islam. But we now, the non-Muslims who are even coming to our communities, they are not in awe of our characteristics for them to accept Islam. What is in our head is that when they come, we kill them. So they have a disgust and a despise for the religion, because all they know or all they think is that this our religion is a religion of killing people, destroying them, maiming them, when that is not the reality. The fourth life in Islam, which is sacred, that you don't have to kill or you can't kill, is al-mu'ahad. What is al-mu'ahad? Al-mu'ahad is a group of non-Muslims that we are at war with. But then after some time, we all agreed for a ceasefire. They won't attack us, we won't attack them for 2 years or 3 years. Within that period of ceasefire, you cannot attack any one of them. Yes. The person is your enemy. He is a Muslim. They are Muslims who are our enemies. And then we agreed for a ceasefire. Within that period of ceasefire, you can't attack them. The only time Muslims fight non-Muslims is when it's in war. But then these Ahlul Dhimma, we've talked about them. Al-Mu'ahad, Al-Musta'man, we've talked about. Al-Mu'ahad, we've talked about. These are non-Muslims. And then the Sharia recognizes that their lives are sacred. So the objective of the Sharia, the second objective, is the protection of lives. You don't just get up and say, Kullu kafir, kafir, so you get up killing. No, you don't do that. You are practicing another religion apart from Islam. Let's go. We don't have much time. The third objective of the Sharia is hifzul mal, the protection of wealth, people's monies. Protection of wealth, people's monies. That is why interest is haram in Islam, because it is an illegal way of consuming people's wealth without justification. And that is why world economies are always suffering. And you economists, you know very well that Economics 101 says the lesser the interest rates, the healthier the economy. That is why governments or political parties are always saying, during our time, we lowered interest rates. During our time, we lowered interest rates. Your interest rates are too high. You are killing the economy. During our time, it was 12%. Your time, it is 15%. So if you know that lowering the interest rate is healthy for the economy, why not zero interest? That is the best. That is the best. Nobody loses. Because if you owe me $10,000 and you're supposed to pay back $12,000, and after 6 months, there is compound interest on it, compound complex interest on it, and at the end of the day, in 2 years' time, instead of me paying you $12,000, I end up paying you $50,000. And I don't have that kind of money. I'm always indebted to you. The economy is always weak because of these compound complex interest rates that you are always, doing. It hurts the economy. So Islam says, no. If I give you 100,000, you pay back 100,000. That's it. Does Islam recognize, the time value of money? Yes, Islam recognizes the time value of money, but that is not a pretext for taking interest. That is Islamic finance and Islamic banking. My elder brother Fauzi Amadou is very well versed in there. Another brother, Sheikh Abbas Mudassir, he's not feeling well now. May the Almighty Allah heal him. He also has that expertise. There is brother Geoffrey Yusuf, has that expertise. You ask these guys about Islamic finance, and then they explain better for you. It is not my field. It is not my field. It's not my field. I've read something about that. I was doing a course on Islamic finance at the Islamic Online University, but the things became too much for me, so I paused it. And inshallah, I'll go back to it and then complete the course. It's a 4-year course. I did 2 years and I went for half time. I didn't like my grades because I didn't have any background in accounting and economics and business maths. So I didn't like the grades the way they were coming. So I had to pause and then rethink. Yes, the non-Muslims will say time value of money. But then at the end of the day, if you consider time value of money, it means you are not rich. You are thinking of what the money will do for you 2-3 years later. And then if you're going to also consider the time value of money in this aspect, the money you are going to take 5 years later, is it equivalent to that money that the person gave you those years? And the most often than not, when you talk of time value of money, it's for currencies that are weak. It's for currencies that are weak. But then currencies like the big currencies in the world that are strong. And even the problem with this is because we use the fiat money. That is the problem. If we use the gold standard, you wouldn't even think about the time value of money or the inflation rates, or we wouldn't even think about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, you the experts in economics. So Islam, in protecting people's wealth, made some prohibitions like bribery and corruption. Islam makes it prohibited because it is consuming people's wealth without justification. Fraud, armed robbery, Islam considered it prohibited. Nyansa Krono, being smart to fraud people. So Islam put on huge rulings there and huge penalties. If you steal someone's money in Islam, your hands are chopped off. Yes. Protect people's wealth. Your hands will be chopped off if you steal in Islam. So imagine all these big men who have been dipping their hands into our pocket. They are dipping their hands into state coffers and then stealing our monies left, right, and center. You think in an Islamic state they will do that? No, where the laws are working. Yes, in some countries we have corrupt officials. And in some Muslim nations, we have corrupt officials. It is there, it happens. But then the ideal Islamic law is that if you steal, and then all indications point to the fact that you are embezzling our funds, the law takes its course. It protects the wealth of people. Hifzul Mal. Then the fourth one is Hifzul Nasl, the protection of the lineage. They will all be walking around without hands, I'm telling you. Hifzul Nasl, the protection of the lineage. That is why Islam made fornication haram. Because Islam values family system. Islam recognizes the right of a child to a mother and a father living under the same roof. So that is why Islam doesn't allow fornication. If you're not married and then you go and fornicate, Islam says, let's flog you 100. Why? Because you are disrupting the society. You are disrupting the family system of the society. Some scholars say hifzul ird, protection of the dignity of the person, together with the lineage. That is why in Islam, if you rape someone's daughter, some of the scholars are saying it is capital punishment. We chop off your head. Some will say rape, yes. Why will you rape someone's daughter? Don't you know that stigma and then the trauma you've put her into? Because there is a general verse where the Almighty Allah says that إنما جزاء الذين يحاربون الله ورسوله ويسعون في الأرض فسادا أن يقتلوا أو يصلبوا أو تقطع أيديهم وأرجلهم من خلاف أو ينفوا من الأرض. Those who cause chaos and confusion on the surface of the earth, and then they are fighting the Almighty Allah and His Messenger. أن يقتلوا, the first thing And then وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا, you're always destroying the what is going. That is why armed robbery in Islam is a very huge issue. So some of the scholars say armed robbers, they are to be killed because they kill in getting what they have. So ird wa nasl. Islam makes zina prohibited. It makes armed robbery prohibited. It makes pillaging on the surface of the earth prohibited. So you protect your ird and then your lineage. Zina prohibited. And then it prevents all these forms of, social and sexual misorders, misdemeanors that we have. Where recently TV3 was airing something disgusting for us, attacking the very social fiber that we have, denying, the culture that we have in our country. Islam doesn't recognize that. It's very, very important we understand that Islam protects family values. So hizb nasl, that is the protection of La ilaha illallah So Islam, in protecting the person's lineage, has put in place these laws because it's a necessity in life. Family is very paramount in Islam. Islam recognizes the fact that children need parents, both mother and father, and not father or mother. Islam doesn't recognize that because in those kind of families, these children are traumatized. Because at the end of the day, they can't even have children. They will have to go and adopt children. When they adopt children, those children are traumatized in the sense that they don't have fathers and mothers. They have only either two fathers or two mothers. And Islam says no. A child in Islam must have a male presence and then a female presence in their lives, because the male and the female have something unique that they both provide. Finally, hifzul aql. Islam protects the mind, the brain. That is why all forms of drugs are haram. Anything that is going to affect your thinking is haram in Islam. So nobody should tell you that if you take weed, it is going to open your mind. Yes, it will open your mind. You start seeing stars. You start seeing angels. You start even dodging air. I remember when I was in research, I alighted at Gorillas. I was going to class and then I saw some of these guys who the Almighty Allah has tested them with drug addiction. Let's pray for them. He was moving his head left, right, left, right, left, right. And then someone asked him, hey, me go get in now. And then he said, nah, dodgy, he's gonna not worry. He said he's dodging air because the air doesn't smell good. How can you dodge air? Let's pray for them. It's not easy. It's very painful that you find people, being addicted to drugs. And Islam says, no, anything that, affects your brain, affects your thinking is haram. So these are the 5 main objectives that the Sharia looks to protect. The necessities, the 5. The protection of religion, deen, relationship with you and Almighty Allah. Then protection of lives, protection of, lineage and reputation, protection of wealth, and protection of the mind. So these are what we call ad-daruriyat al-khamsa, the 5 necessities. There's what we also call al-hajiyat, which are, wants. Home, having a home. People don't have homes, but then they are alive. And stuff like that. And then the luxuries are, cars, flying, and stuff like that. So we've looked at the objectives of the Sharia. We were supposed to look at the characteristics of the Sharia today, but then we looked at the objectives rather. So inshallah, we'll change the topic, the name that we've put on Facebook, we'll change it to the objectives of the Sharia. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll look at the characteristics of the Sharia. Yes, the characteristics of how is the Sharia, how does it look like after we've seen the objectives. So thank you very much for passing by. It's Zuhur here, and we'll take 1 or 2 questions from you guys, and we'll call it a day. Sheikh Abdul Rashid, how are you? Fine? Good. Adamu Jula, hey, this is my brother. You've deserted me. Where have you been? Sheikh Abdulaziz, yes, the guy said he was dodging the air. I saw it. Doesn't easy. For Isa, Naif, Haifa, my sweetheart, how are you? Nizamuddin. Hey, my doctor, my older brother, Sheikh Hanif Zakaria Nawawi. It's been a while. It's my fault. I will try to, meet you and call you, inshallah. Thank you very much. So any questions? If you have any questions, if you know them, we answer them. If you don't know them, we'll jot them down, and then we'll also go and ask or look for them, inshallah. As we're waiting for your questions, let me give you the qira'ah we listen today. Someone is asking, in terms of protecting wealth, it's clear that interest is haram, but I once heard that tax is also haram. Sheikh, please, any comment on this? I don't know. I'll search. I don't know if tax is haram. I can't say anything on that. So I'll look for that, inshallah. I don't know. As I told you, I'm not an expert in Islamic finance. So if I'll jot that down, and then I'll also ask the experts in Islamic finance, what is the position of taking taxes in Islam? I only know of jizya in Islam for non-Muslims, but how is it applicable to Muslims? I don't know, so I'll check on that, inshallah. The Quran's voice looks like your qira'ah. Oh, it's not me, please. This guy is on a whole different level. It's not me. This qira'ah is beyond me. Let's go back to it. Okay.
ومن شكر فإنما يشكر لنفسه ومن كفر فإن ربي غني كريم.
Thank you very much for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.